You can't be disturbed when you're listening to only the best herbs.
A main topic, I would say, cannabis reform. We have a lot of people who are cannabis advocates in our community. Rather that be medicinal, THC, CBD, CBN, the range of cannabinoids that there is
Right.
in some capacity. But tell me a little bit about what you do for the people who aren't familiar.
Well, what I do is I'm a legislative advisor at the State House for like the last 9 years. I was in 2015 a co-author on the white paper that led to the medical cannabis program, the House Bill 523. In 2019, I was a co-author on the white paper that led Senate Bill 57 to our hemp program as we know it today. And then as far as issue 2 in Ohio, I've been a legislative advisor with drafting up amendment language to fix the loopholes in that. Primarily, my focus is on advocating for the betterment of all three of those programs, also to advocate for the protections for patients and consumers, their protection rights, to make sure that they get, a fair time in the game, so to say. The reason I say that is if we look across America at all the programs that have been, every state, there's two things they do out of three. First, they draft up the rules and guidelines for the regulators to protect them, and they draft up rules and guidelines for the license holders to protect them. What we leave out is in the middle, patients and consumers. Criminal justice reform. We don't do that. That's one of the big things I focus on, and pretty much my whole thing is about criminal justice reform. Being retired law enforcement, understanding, working the streets for 20 years, understanding how, what happens on the streets, in the courts, just simply around drugs as a whole, cannabis specifically, being that, cannabis is like finding chocolate in a candy or chocolate. Find like chocolate in a candy store. It's all over America. So yeah, that's kind of what I do is I look out for protections, patients and consumers, such as housing rights, employment rights, child custody rights, firearm rights, the rights as anybody else would have if they were taking pharmaceutical medications, using alcohol, tobacco, own a firearm, whatever. They've got rights and protections, so I fight for those people.
That is awesome. That is like exactly it's exactly what what we're pushing for as well.
Right.
So it's a good alignment, and I'm glad we're getting to connect. I seen something to do with Ohio State University. You kind of touched upon that a little bit. Cannabis safety. I'm assuming that's kind of like courses or some type of education towards people in college. Entering college landscape. So I'm kind of interested in what that's about.
Yeah, this started back in 2016 when we had several colleges across the country. I think most of them have dismantled now or they've lost interest and so forth. It's called the SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. As we know, the largest denominator in incarceration in America is drugs. So we don't try to help people with drug issues. We try to penalize them and criminalize them. Which has backfired on us tremendously. So we see what this happens. It costs lives. It costs mass amounts of money, mass amounts of time in court tied up, mass amounts of times in hospitals, et cetera, because of the way that America approaches it. So Students for Sensible Drug Policy, these were college students. In 2016, they wanted to be a part of legalization of cannabis. We said, that's fine. But it seemed like that particular group, all they wanted to talk about was hardcore illicit drugs. And we tried to explain to them, we appreciate your input and all this, but it's more of a cannabis thing. So we've seen a group of them, and I worked with that group for years. I spoke many times at different events they had, participated in everything. I got to know quite a few of them, some great college kids, some just fabulous minds of what they wanted to do. So the group that broke off and says, Tim, we want to do cannabis. I said, okay, well, let's start something. So they created the Ohio Cannabis Club, assuming that a lot of students would follow that more so than follow the other types of drugs. Now, the goal
Okay.
behind SSDP was kind of like the organization LEAP, Law Enforcement Action Partnership, was is to legalize all drugs. And it does make some sense. It's not to promote them, but it's to take away the uh, criminalizing people that get addicted on a drug. It may start legally in a doctor's office with prescriptions of pharmaceuticals. The next thing, they're not getting them from their doc anymore, so now they're looking on the streets for them and so forth. And addiction can be a very serious thing. So, anyways, we took and said, yeah, let's work together here. Let's create some social media pages. And we did some events and tried to help get them going, generate them, give them a little boost and so forth. And we were successful, or they were, for several years. And then they've kind of faded off a little bit. I don't think they have the membership following that they used to have. But I'm hoping to, I've been, myself and others have been putting stuff on their social media pages, trying to spark some energy back into them. I think it was more of okay, well, the medical program's created, there's a hemp program, there's adult programs, there's nothing else for us to do. There's a lot for them to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So as you probably know, one of the biggest problems on campuses across the country, if you receive any federal funding, then cannabis is, even though it's legal in your state, it's still illegal on the campus. And that's from a criminal aspect. And so that's kind of what with them is. There's another aspect. I don't mean to keep talking, but called
Go
DEPI
for
at OSU, Drug Enforcement Policy Center. And we've seen the Koch brothers years ago. The professor Doug Berman down there is of law professor. Received like $4 million from the Koch brothers to create this new drug policy center to collect data and do research. Data is about what they do. They collect data. And then they had the Menard family. Menard's retail store gave them like $10 million a couple years ago too. So they've been blessed with a bunch of funds to do what they do. I've worked with them on several different projects down there. And we've tried to, again, revitalize the student participation. But hey, let's be honest about it. If you're a student there and you're on a federal grant and you get caught smoking a joint or something, you can lose that federal grant, get kicked off of campus and everything. So, but we still keep pushing forward. So OSU is trying to, here in Columbus, Ohio, is trying to make strides to for the betterment of legalizing, if that's what we want to call it. I call it regularizing, like regulatory. It's still illegal. Even when you make it legal, it's still illegal.
You guys just passed, right? You just got not too long ago, Ohio. It's like within the last year, right?
November of last year.
Okay, yeah.
Passed issue 2 for adult choice program here in Ohio. And we're still, it's a year later, but we're, what the language said, our legislators have been very respectful in allowing the timeline to play out. And now it's a point, of course, we're about at the end of session, and next year we'll start a whole new General Assembly. So we will see a lot of language. I know I've introduced a lot of language to the issue to clean up the loopholes in the gray area to provide protections for consumers 21 and over. But yeah, that we actually went. We voted in November. It went into effect in December, and personal cultivation and possession limits and stuff were the main things at the time. So that's kind of where we're at. August, we opened up our first adult dispensary. It's actually a combination dispensary. We used our brick and mortar for the medical program that were already there, and we just, put in a POS system for 21 and over. Everybody gets the same products, it's the same store, and rather than create all these other facilities, and it made business sense to the owners as well. So instead of just selling to medical patients, I can now sell to 21 and over. So,
I'm in Michigan.
Moving along.
I'm in Michigan, so I'm right above you. So we've had our, we've been legal for a minute.
Yeah.
And man, is it a war zone? That's like the best way I can put it. What I've noticed. And I don't know how to put it. It's because cannabis has been such an illicit black market thing, um, still to this day in many, many places. That kind of follows into the legal side of it as well. It's just something that kind of I've noticed that happens, so it helps in some aspects, but like in some aspects, I don't know. It's just really interesting to see the dynamics, I guess, the progression of how things uh, develop after these laws are passed. And I'm a huge advocate of just make it legal, make cannabis legal. Like we're so far beyond, so far beyond, and like actually we are far behind, but we're so much farther beyond. Like we have so many bigger issues, like you said. I'm not a, how do I say this? I'm familiar with the court systems and how all that works and that side, and it's cannabis doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
It's interesting when you look at Ohio and Michigan, and Ohio has a cap industry. Michigan has an open industry. Therefore, that's why you see the amount of facilities that you see in Michigan, the prices that you see. But you can also, get taken on some Michigan product. Not all Michigan product is good. Some out there growing just to get rid of, make money or whatever it may be. And I understand that. The unique thing about Ohio is that our state house, the main runway out in front of our state house is called High Street. High Street turns into 23 and 23 turns into Detroit, Michigan. So I always tease the lawmakers there that, we don't really need a cannabis program. What we just need is for you to stop criminalizing us because we can produce our own cannabis. We've done that for years without your help. You've just criminalized us, mass incarcerated us, destroyed our lives for the simple fact of cannabis being illegal based on a false premises.
Yeah.
Now, where Ohio is now with their adult program, we have reciprocity, just like Michigan does for 21 and over for the adult program. Our medical program, there's no reciprocity. If you're not a medical patient in Ohio, you can't purchase in Ohio. So we're trying to change that. But for adults, if what people aren't taking into effect is in Ohio, and we think $52 million a month is really fantastic for adults. Well, that's with 6 other states purchasing around us. So it's not just all Ohioans. The ironic thing is when we're doing $52 million adults in Ohio, in Michigan, from my connections there, we're per Ohio receipts, we're still spending $60 to $70 million a month in Michigan. Ohio people are. So we're still spending more money in Michigan on their adult program than we spend in our own state. And that's because of the way the regulatory framework is set up right now. So
Yeah, there's I know I know from certain people who own dispensaries that has been a huge marketing thing, putting the dispensaries right by the border of Ohio.
Yep.
Especially recently because of the law changes. But it's cool to hear. It's cool that you are a part of this. Like that's awesome. You go to work every day and you fight for this, and it's pretty inspiring. It is inspiring. So
Yep.
what about the
Somebody's got to
future?
do it. Yep. Yes,
What about the future? What do you guys got? What do you guys got cooking up right now?
Right now, they're down. Actually, I left the state house a little bit early so I could get home for this, but we have a Senate Bill 326 that, in essence, they want to ban retail hemp in Ohio. Probably not going to happen. What they're going to go after, and I did introduce the bill. I find it kind of funny that all of a sudden, I mean, you got to understand the politics. I'm sure you understand the politics in Michigan. The politics in Ohio is the licensees in the cannabis program don't want the licensees in the hemp retail to survive. They want to do away with anything, any consumable hemp in Ohio. They're fine with industrial hemp, but we want to get rid of there's like 10,000 stores in Ohio that from gas stations to mini marts to straight up hemp stores to Walmart to Kroger's and all these stores that sell all these hemp products. They're unregulated. We don't know what the products are that are in there. They come, a lot of it comes from overseas. There's no child resistant packaging or guidelines to say it can't be child attractive and all this type of stuff. So, and then we've got some of the hemp places saying we sell THC here. You don't need a medical cannabis card. We got medical cannabis right here for you. And rightfully so, by using some of the loopholes in the Agriculture Improvement Act 2018 and the Ohio's laws and stuff. There's loopholes that they pretty much, you can walk in and get the same thing in a wide open hemp store that you can go to a dispensary and get. And what's happened is it's a lot of it, and I'll be testifying in a couple of weeks here, but part of my testimony will be the failure of the legislative body in Ohio to follow through with a regulated hemp program. Because when we created our hemp program, we regulated everything except for the retail stores. So we let them go. So in the cannabis, everything's is regulated, from testing, cultivating, processing to dispensaries. Well, they didn't do that in the hemp program. So the hemp program was able to take these loopholes and basically become an open market dispensary. So I think they hurt themselves by crying to the politicians. I'll just put it out there saying, hey, we want to sell our products in the dispensaries. And my comment to them was, well, why would you want to sell? We got 127 dispensaries in Ohio. Why would you want to be limited to 127 and regulated when you got 10,000 stores out here that you could market yourself to and you're not regulated yet? So then next thing, we got all this stuff plastered all over their windows. License holders started snitching on them to the state regulators. Parents started crying about it, brought to the governor's attention. And so now we're at the state house with this Senate Bill 326 that wants to, kind of ban retail hemp in Ohio. I think the simple thing is to put some regulatory guidelines in there. But we also need to permit the cannabis license holders. They need to have rights that we're still fighting for, such as marketing rights. You guys are blessed up there with big billboards with weed all over it. You ain't gonna see that in Ohio yet.
Crazy.
Might be a couple years, but we're fighting for it. But just like any other industry, the cannabis and hemp industries both should have the right to market their product and their services under guidelines that are ethical and so forth. So in 2025, what you're going to see is several bills introduced addressing to cleaning up some of our medical program, which has been going on for 7 years now. We'll hopefully see some corrections there. We'll see some cleanup language and protections put into place in the adult choice program. And the hemp industry side of it, they'll get themselves together legitimately, and they'll sell, they'll have the sticker on the door that say they've been state inspected by the Department of Agriculture, enforcement, whoever they choose to do that with. And we'll see, them selling what they're supposed to be selling, and the dispensaries selling what they're supposed to be selling. So we don't want to take and totally ban an industry that already contributes billions of dollars to the economy, thousands of jobs to the economy. But unfortunately, the license holders and the cannabis side are kind of adamant about wanting to go after that, but I don't see them getting their way on it. I think as I said, if we give them some regulatory guidelines of how they can produce increase their bottom line. And that's what it comes down to. And a lot of it comes down to not having the right to market, but an ignorance of what kind of business am I really in? Because I got millions of dollars and I was able to buy a cultivation center, processing, and I got 3 dispensaries. Well, that doesn't mean you know what to do in the industry or the cannabis community. You just because you got money, but some of them feel that way. And and some of the product, and pricing's got a lot to do with everything.
Being a business owner, I have a hemp company that I run, or that I own, and it's called Surgeons. It was CBD Surgeons, but due to online reasons, we had to we took the CBD part out. So now we kind of interchanged it a little bit, but you're 100% right. There was a time where we were thinking about selling the THCA flower. That was before there was like a whole bunch of like research that was done into that. Like, THCA flowers is just, THCA hemp flower. I mean, there's like literally no difference. I mean, THCA is like, the crystals. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Once you
and,
put fire to it, it's all THC.
right. So, there was that big whole thing, and like you said, exactly. I mean, it's like Texas area, Ohio, at that, when you guys weren't legal. It's crazy though. There is a lot to look forward to in that industry.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Uh Man, I think we've covered just a lot of stuff.
A lot. I think myself, what it comes down to is politicians should have went to specialists to create laws rather than try to be politicians that are shoe salesmen, bread makers, wine distributors, and now all of a sudden they're in the lawmaking. They don't even know the difference between cannabis, marijuana, and hemp, and they want to make laws for this stuff. In the first place, if they would have went to the scientists, the people that have been around doing this, bless his soul, Ralph Mashulum people. I could go on and on with all kinds of names. NIDA in 23 categorized 32,000 cannabis studies, research papers, and peer review papers. 32,000. So it's not like there hasn't been research done on anything. It's there. Do we need more research? Always need more research on anything to see, how much better you can get at it and so on. So I think that across America, hopefully this year, we'll see a lot more states go legal. I know we've got hit at the polls real hard. We didn't get what we wanted to with the Dakotas and what was Florida and so forth. But as long as the advocates in those states stay at it, it's going to happen.
I've
We're
noticed.
actually at a threshold, what's called national nullification for medical states. At 37, you can file a national nullification request, and they have to change national laws, and every state becomes, technically legal then under their own programs. So that's something we have to look at. We have to look at. I have a saying that legalization is not legalization until we're free from prosecution. And what I mean by that is we've technically entered a new era of prohibition. So we went from total black market cannabis in the United States to we started creating state programs. Well, all we really did was we still have criminal statutes, but now we have regulatory statutes. So it's like, we're being watched twice now. So if we get outside of either one of the, outside of the what they call legal program, if you get outside of it, in Ohio, it's 2.5 ounces of flower. If I get caught on the streets with 3 ounces of flower, now I fall under the old criminal statutes that still exist. So is there really legalization if I can still be prosecuted? No, there's not. So do I ever see it going federally, I guess nationally legal? Such as we're hoping, DEA and HHS will get their shit together on this Schedule 3. Probably going to be a couple of years since they canceled the December meeting. That means bureaucracy has gotten in the way, so it could be a couple of years before they address that. But it would be nice to see that happen. It would open up a lot of doors. But in the same respect, again, it's still like, people like here in Ohio, I've had people reach out to me. I work with a lot of law firms as a consultant. And Tim, I got caught with this and this. And I says, well, you're outside the program rules. Well, I thought it was legal. I said, if you're inside the program, it's kind of like alcohol, dudes. If you're 18 and you're buying alcohol and you get caught with it, you're outside the 21-year-old rule. So you guys, you have to still abide by that. Is it good? It has been somewhat good for criminal justice reform. The legalization I've seen. But as I said in the beginning, I think that we leave out that third piece of the whole pie. And that's the most important. I think that's what attracts people. If you tell me that I'm protected, then I will, go into a dispensary and purchase. But if you're not going to protect me, then I'm going to keep going to Johnny on the corner where I've been going for 20, 30 years and where I still feel safe. Only a few people know that I consume, my neighbors or whatever, the church, the employment, nobody, knows anything about it. But if I go into a program, what are they all going to say if I'm saying, yeah, I can go to the dispensary and buy it now? Well, there's still a lot of stigma that we have to deal with in there. So we'll see. Let's cross our fingers and hope some good things happen in 2025.
I think most people would just say, and myself included, is we're just happy to see some progress.
Yes.
Baby steps is cool, as long as we can get there. I mean, we're not trying to get, 5 years. 5 years is pushing it, I would say, but like you said, we gotta play with the cards we're dealt type
Right.
of thing as terms as like in terms of what you guys do, So I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you, Tim, coming and talking with me. We're gonna stay in touch.
Yeah, stay in touch. I appreciate the invite, and hey, if the Buckeyes ain't winning, go blue.
They're terrible this year, absolutely terrible. But we won't talk about that, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Have a good rest of your night.
When it comes to cannabis, we're all one family.
For sure. I agree. Have a good rest of your night, Tim.
You as well, Ryan. Thanks for reaching out.